Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Weekend Wrap-Up Show. It is March 22nd, 2025. I'm David Thomas. Mr. Josh Blevins, sitting across the table from me, has a lot of stuff to talk about and report on this week. Josh, there's a lot of exciting things happened this week.
Lots of things moving on. It's a Saturday morning. It's a beautiful day outside. If you get a chance, go outside. I stopped into my friends at Southern Cup. We got a little caffeine going, so we're in good shape on a Saturday.
Well, before we dive into all this stuff, let's hear from our sponsors, Dennis Young Insurance. We'll take a break, hear from him, and we'll come back and dive in head first.
Absolutely.
Get the results you want with the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 19.
All righty, welcome back to the Weekend Wrap-Up. Josh, dive in. Tell us what's going on, man.
Dive in. Well, we don't like to avoid the controversial topics, so we're going to start right off the top with one. Tuesday evening, we had the county committee meetings, and we had mentioned last week on the show that we thought that the issues going on with the county first responder radios would come up at this meeting. And we were not mistaken. It did come up. It went a direction I didn't expect it to go in, but normally we wait and talk about things on Saturday, but it went in such a different direction that we went ahead and posted about it Tuesday night after the meeting.
Right.
And we're going to dive in a little deeper this morning on it. If you want to go ahead, let me set up what we're going to play. We're going to play just a short clip. If you want to see the entire meeting, it's on the, as always, it's on the county YouTube page. We posted about a 6-minute video Tuesday night that encapsulates enough that you can really get a feel for what went on. So rather than play a whole 6 minutes this morning, I've just clipped a real short piece of just the what our county mayor said to Commissioner Maddox that kind of got the ball rolling, and then we're just going to discuss why it went in the direction it did. So if you could play clip one, and then we'll talk about it. So,
Mr. Maddox, I'm not aware that you contacted my office or asked me anything about it. I was aware, though. You did contact my office and ask me?
No, I have not.
Oh, no, I didn't think you. Yeah, okay, I got you. So, but I was aware that you were looking around and talking to other people about it, but I thought it was interesting that you never came to the mayor regarding that, which I don't think you have about lots of things, and that's okay too. But it's a little bit interesting that there could have been a lot more information shared with you besides grandstanding and meetings if you just come to the source. It's never be a violation of, and the state ratified this, for you to violate sunshine to talk to your county mayor. Now, it is thought to be a violation of sunshine when you guys congregate after meetings out there on the lawn. As you know, that 2 or more is say no more in violation of sunshine, but you guys quite often like to throw around the word transparency.
Sure.
And so I'm happy.
All right, Josh. We've got a lot going on right there.
A lot going on. There's actually 2 key points that he made there, and I want to dive into both of them. His first point was and this is a lot of this is opinion, and I guess we should say right off top because it's a little bit of a controversial topic. Even though I'm in the city government, this is Josh Blevins' personal opinion. This does not reflect anybody else's opinion but mine. And Mr. David Thomas, who will also have some opinion. He's got some opinion as well. So,
and this is personal opinion just by observing.
The mayor is upset that Commissioner Maddox brought a topic to the Public Safety Committee that he didn't first privately contact his office about. And he used the word grandstanding. There's an article on the cover, I believe, of the Times-Gazette this week that talks about this as well. So is it the obligation of Mr. Maddox or anybody in public office to have a private meeting about something first, or is it okay to bring something to these committees? This is the Public Safety Committee. They're tasked with overseeing public safety for Bedford County. A lot of what happens at these committee meetings, I'll just be blunt, is a lot of slapping each other on the back about what a great job we're doing. And there's a lot of good things going on in Bedford County, and we appreciate all the good things that are going on, but you can't just focus on the good things going on and turn a blind eye when you've got an issue. we've talked extensively last week about this issue, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute. There's an issue going on with the public safety radio system in Bedford County right now. Should it be handled in private meetings and the public not know anything about it? Or is it appropriate to bring it in front of the Public Safety Committee and discuss
Well,
it?
the word public pretty much gives us a clue to answer to your question, Josh.
Yeah. So my opinion is this is the appropriate forum for that kind of discussion. This is the Public Safety Committee. There's something going on. It affects public safety. It probably should be brought in front of this committee. So, and I would.
Well, let me tell you, I'm gonna give you my opinion on what would have happened.
Yeah.
Had any commissioner contacted the mayor's office, that would be a private conversation.
Right.
And it's the job of the commissioners to communicate and listen to and voice concerns for constituents, which are taxpayers in the county that are receiving services from the county.
Yeah.
And the service we're speaking about here is emergency services. And this is the Public Safety Committee talking about it. Had he contacted and had a private conversation, if he had come back out and reported what happened in that conversation, well, the mayor's going to be mad about that too, because we had a private conversation. This is a public situation, Josh. And actually, Commissioner Maddox gave our mayor the perfect opportunity to let everybody know that was in that meeting and whoever was watching what's going on with the radio system, even though they had just gotten a update from Mr. Kitchens that's over. What's his official title?
He's our EMA director.
He's our EMA director.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I hadn't heard who the project manager over getting this radio system in place is. I think Commissioner Maddox was trying to find out who was responsible from the county side. Is it? I don't think Mr. Kitchens. That's not his full responsibility.
I don't know where all that lies, and we'll get into what's wrong with the radios here in just a second. But just in general, this was his first major point was, are you grandstanding for bringing up an issue at the Public Safety Committee about public safety? Should you handle it privately? Should it be handled in public? And just my opinion, it feels like it's your opinion as well, is this is an okay spot to bring up public safety issues.
That's natural place. I mean, it is a committee meeting where everybody can be in on the conversation.
Yeah. And then the second half of what was brought forth there was that you guys are violating sunshine law by congregating after meetings. That's at a minimum an ad hominem attack. I mean, nothing in this discussion of radios was anything to do with the sunshine law. So another article you can read in the Times Gazette, but sunshine law is something that gets thrown around a whole lot as I've found in being on the city council and also going to a lot of these meetings. There's a misunderstanding, I think, that all the members of the county commission, the city council, that they walk into this meeting, they have a discussion, they vote on stuff, they walk out, there's like a security guy that walks into the car and they leave and they never talk to each other, and then they come back and do this again in a month. That's just not how it works. There are discussions held between members of the county commission, the city council. There are very strict guidelines around what those discussions can be. In my case, I've been, and we speak about this publicly at city council meetings, I've been on 2 or 3 what we would call fact-finding field trips, tours, whatever you want to call them, where I've gone with another council member to gain information about something that we're going to have to vote on later. That's perfectly legal under sunshine law.
Oh yeah,
I can sit down and have it, and honestly, I don't, and I love all our other council members. I don't sit down and have lunch with any of them. We're just not, that close of a friend. But if I did, I could sit down and have lunch with another council member. Perfectly legal, as long as we're not debating to a conclusion on an item that's going to come up for a vote that isn't then publicly discussed at a public meeting.
Right.
And the remedy, if somehow we got off track and had a discussion on a topic that's coming up for a vote, is not that we would get locked up and fined and thrown in jail or anything. The remedy is you then have to have that discussion later on at the public meeting, the same discussion. If it's found out that you didn't have the discussion at the public meeting, the final remedy is the item has to be re-voted on with the public discussion happening.
Right.
So there's a lot of nuance to that law. There's a lot of things that are misunderstood. But in general, the fact that a number of the county commissioners and a number of the city council members, they sit down and, talk for a few minutes before the meeting. They decompress afterwards. Believe it or not, some of those meetings can get a little stressful, and they may have a conversation afterwards. I'll go out for a burger afterwards sometimes with somebody. That's all doesn't fall under,
No.
and that's not anybody trying to hide anything
No.
from the public. That's just them going about living their lives, and well within the realm of the Sunshine Law. And as long as everything is publicly discussed at the meeting, everything's publicly voted on, and they're not having some kind of secret backroom meeting where they vote and make a change to law or do something. And that's where you get into illegal things. And if we're hiding down in the basement of the courthouse and having a vote and we didn't tell anybody it was going on, that's not
that's a
legal.
violation of Sunshine
That is a
Law.
direct violation of Sunshine Law.
A conclusion has to come. The way I read this law,
Yeah.
a conclusion has to be made to where a public policy has been set
Right.
without public input.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't see this happening on the courthouse steps.
No,
I mean,
that's not what's going on
no.
there. And anybody is welcome. And I've been to many of those meetings because I go to all those meetings now. I've been to those, hanging out outside the courthouse afterwards, just talking to people. And sometimes members of the public come and hang out and talk to the commissioners afterwards.
Sure.
And that's all perfectly, allowed.
That's what representation looks like sometimes.
Yeah.
Where you actually talk to somebody face to face.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
that might be a new concept to some people, but that's kind of what happens
Yeah.
when you represent people. And when you work for the people, you have to engage with people and other people, and you have these relationships. So this Sunshine Law has been used as some sort of leverage in the past to keep everybody shut up. I got news for you. It's all this type of stuff does, and this type of attitude does, is get more people talking more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So-
there's been a lot of talk this week. So
Yes.
let's get off what the county mayor said. Let's get into the actual meat of the issue, which is what is going on with the county radios. So I published a clip earlier this week. It was a little confusing because there was no video involved. It was just audio. So it had a picture.
Right.
If you were on Facebook and didn't have your volume up on your phone, you wouldn't have actually heard what was going on. So let's just play a 30-second clip. This is the morning after this debate. The county, and I don't know who actually initiated this, I'd say EMA or somebody involved, went out and actually started testing the county radios again because there have been concerns that we've got first responders unable to contact the comm center at critical times. Let's hear about 30 seconds of that traffic so you can kind of hear for yourself what our current county radio system sounds like.
216, you're mostly able to be read. A lot of static. Station 1, radio check, Highway 64. Bye. 16, you're readable, less static than the last transmission. 1, radio check. 1 for Oklahoma. 216, you are broken up and
Okay, that's pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah, clear, not so clear. So you had two different radio signals there. If you couldn't pick it out, you had 216 who was out in the field with probably a handheld, possibly vehicle radio. We don't know that. And then you had the comm center. This was picked up from an antenna inside the city limits. So the guy at the comm center was pretty clear, but you heard a couple different levels of how unclear the guy out in the field got. In that third one, if you could pick it out, he was so broken up, you couldn't really hear what he was saying. And what has been happening, and I heard this from a couple people in the volunteer fire departments in particular that work out in the outskirts of the county, is what a situation that could occur would be you may get dispatched to a scene where you're in Bell Buckle, you're in War Trace, you're in a city where you've got some kind of signal. You get dispatched what we called, I guess, code 3, signal 3, where your lights and sirens to an emergency, what you think is an emergency situation. You get on the road driving lights and siren to the edge of the county, and comm center may call back in and say, hey, it was a false alarm or whatever to call you down. You may not hear that second call. You're still going lights and siren out to the edge of the county thinking you're coming to an emergency situation. The problem with that is, as we saw, this was a number of years back in Nashville, we had a police officer. He was going lights and siren to a call, and it was an actual emergency, and somebody didn't see him at a red light and T-boned him and killed the police officer. So when you've got somebody running lights and siren to a scene that isn't an actual emergency, not only are their lives in a level of jeopardy, you've got the public that's also in a little bit of jeopardy because you've got vehicles moving above the speed limit. And so they need to be able to have reliable communication back and forth. And that's not going on right now. Now, back to the debate that happened Tuesday night. Whose fault this is, it's not really a matter of whose fault it is. It's a matter of how can we fix it. And the mayor he stepped up, our county mayor stepped up and said, hey, the buck stops with me. And I appreciate that. And there may be no fixing this. You did a little bit of research. You talked to our local radio experts, which is Middle Tennessee Two-Way.
Right.
And give us a little bit of the background of what's going on with this TACAN radio, why we're sitting here 3 years later and still don't have radios that we ordered.
Okay, for decades, Middle Tennessee Two-Way has been our go-to for our communications here in the city and the county and other businesses. That's what they do.
Right.
They are a Motorola dealer. Okay, that's significant here.
Yeah.
In the past, anytime there's been any type of work done to our communication system, that's our go-to people. That's who we pick up the phone and call when we have an issue. They handle it. Okay, it's pretty clear cut. I think that the issue here now is this TACAN system is only available through one dealer in Nashville, Nashcom.
Yeah.
They've got this gig with the state. They somehow got their politics right, and they are
they got an exclusive deal on this
right.
radio system.
And when the grant money, now this all goes back to COVID grant money.
Yeah.
We had to decide at the county level if we were going to go with just a DMR, a digital mobile radio system like our city has,
right,
and get off the analog, go to the digital, and rebuild the whole system at a cost of $1.2 million. That's what Middle Tennessee Two-Way, who would be able to service it locally, and you would have somebody in charge locally doing it, okay, versus spending $5.6 million or whatever it ends up being, 5.2 with this grant money, which, by the way, is taxpayer money, and it's open for discussion when it's taxpayer money, and that's what we're doing. We're having our own discussion, which would have had to been going through Nashcom out of Nashville, and the state of Tennessee is also working with them on getting the towers put up. So Middle Tennessee Two-Way, that's the first organization I thought of. Well, they would know a lot about this. So I talked to them, and they explained to me that they had this $1.2 million bid for the DMRs, very similar to our city. But this TACAN, the benefit of it is each organization from county to county can communicate with each other.
Yeah, it's
it makes a huge
statewide
network.
interconnected radio system.
All right.
Yeah.
So I don't know what benefit that would do in case of like a regional emergency. It could help.
Oh,
and
sure.
there's some benefits to it.
Yeah.
But also it would help if our county employees can communicate with our city employees. And the DMR system would have done it at the $1.2 million. Okay, just change frequency and you're there pretty much. Okay, that would create a mesh, and it would have got done pretty quick, the way I understand. It probably would have taken a few months to get all that in place because we would use some of the local towers. You're just getting a better system in place and more up to date. And they were left out of the loop. We decided to go with the TACAN system because that's the newest, greatest, and best thing, and a lot of other counties are doing it. Mm-hmm. And we heard, this goes back to 2022 when it was voted on, money allocated for it, and here we sit 3.5 years later, whatever it is, without radios, with a broken system. And Middle Tennessee Two-Way tells me that right now what we have can't be patched up because it's so out of date and so old, you can't even get the equipment.
Yeah, it's end of life, so there's no new equipment being manufactured.
Unless you could find it on a government surplus site somewhere that has an old transmitter or an old part that might patch it together. And I think Middle Tennessee Two-Way is willing to do whatever it takes to help our local system here for the county, but they're out of it. When we chose to go that direction, now the question could be, well, would we have been better to put that system in and then graduate up later when this was going to be more available? So we're stuck with our EMS and our all of our first responders having to rely on cell phones and sometimes smoke signals.
Well, I don't know about smoke signals, but in hindsight's always 20/20.
Right.
I think if we 3 years ago or 2 years ago knew where we'd be at today, maybe a different decision would have been made. But if you go back 2 years ago, 3 years ago, looking at the TACAN system, it's got all the bells and whistles. Right. It does great things when it's installed and working. So now here we sit, what do we do? And I don't have an answer. I don't know that you have the perfect answer either. The mayor asked Commissioner Maddox for an answer. He doesn't have, the solution. But I think one thing definitely that needs to happen is, at least at this public safety committee meeting, would be a monthly update exactly where we're at, what the holdups are at. Anybody at the state level that we could reach. It seems like, and I saw this a lot in the comments, and some people even that you talked to, I think at Middle Tennessee Two-Way, said similar things, which is Motorola is such a big company, you're
They
not
don't
going to
care.
really budge them. You're
Yeah.
not going to get a hold of anybody
no.
that you're going to have a big enough impact. We're a small,
Yeah.
such a small piece of their world that they don't
Yeah.
even know that we hardly exist.
Let's think about Motorola for a second.
Yeah.
Pretty much their whole livelihood comes from government contracts. They don't
Yeah.
sell. They used to sell consumer products.
They used to be big in the cell phone
Yes,
business.
but
Yeah.
now they've pulled in, and their main communications business is this and
Yeah.
cell phones. That's
Yeah.
pretty much it. So they look at a $5.1 million or $5.2 million contract. And say, well, that's just a piece of their little puzzle that they've got going on. That's much bigger. So we're just a small thing.
Yeah.
So y'all just fend for yourself. They don't care.
Yeah. So, I mean, just basically at this point, and I know the word was thrown out there in one of those clips, transparency, but basically, yeah, if updates could be made, and then maybe if we just determine, and I don't know how you'd even determine this, that this is going to drag out for another year or something, which, God forbid, but if it was, maybe we have to look at a secondary solution, like some kind of a temporary patch of some kind. I don't
Yeah.
know what that would look like. If it would have to cost the $1.2 million, I think that'd be, something you wouldn't want to have to do is switch to one system, then immediately switch to another system. But it's concerning at the least. And it is it's something that's really going on here in the county. And it's
Yeah.
something that hopefully will be addressed.
Judge,
So,
I want to back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
And talk about just the whole dynamics of this meeting.
Yeah.
There was a real good opportunity to get everybody caught up to speed here.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Kitchens gave us a little bit better update than what we've had in the past
right.
because his question's been brought up. And I think whether it's radios or if it's tablets that we've paid for and hadn't got, whether it's lighting systems that are taking 2 years to put up or whatever it is, once you come out and announce that this is taking place, I think it's pretty much expected that you kind of give up to date information, and it's an opportunity to show progress. Hey, we're making progress on this. This is where it stands. Instead, a lot of times this stuff just disappears and vanishes, and the public doesn't hear about it. Well, it's the public's money, and these are public employees. Okay, the mayor is an employee of the county. He gets a paycheck from the county. The commissioner was asking questions on behalf of his boss. They're the boss. The taxpayers are the boss here. So he had an opportunity here to make a, hey, this is where we're at, and this is how we're working to fix it, and here's our backup plan in case this doesn't get fixed. Okay. Instead, we got a lecture to a commissioner, which is representing the boss of the person giving the lecture. He had an opportunity to really shine here. Instead, he chose to be a jackleg.
I'm going to leave that at that.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a real good opportunity. I could see how that conversation could have went completely different if he chose not to go down the lecture scene.
Yeah. It went sideways.
It went sideways
it
and
went
out the door
sideways.
all the way to the steps.
It
Okay.
went sideways.
All right. So I'm off of that now.
Okay.
Next time, I hope he chooses to give us some good update, maybe even assign a project manager. When you got a $5.1 million project going on, I think that's significant enough where you put a point person on that and say, this is the person that's going to do all the communicating. And whenever we got an issue, that way it takes it off Mr. Kitchens' plate. It takes it off the mayor's plate. You got one guy that's focusing and daily contacting instead of just wondering, how's this going to get done? I mean, you assign a job to it, to a person.
Yeah.
I think that's what could have happened, but instead we got this. Elvis has got company.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
On to let's go to the rest of the week. Monday we had I attended my first ever city bid committee meeting. We received 2 bids on Deary Street from East Depot to East Lane. They're going to redo that with sidewalks, crosswalks, make it more pedestrian friendly. This is based on a grant that the city has received. Obviously, they're going to choose the low bid, would be my assumption. We'll have to vote on that at council. That really wasn't the point of discussing it. The point that came up during this meeting was under this street that they're going to have to dig up is a water line installed in 1896.
1896, a long time ago, Josh.
1896. So the question was raised
129 years ago.
why don't, while we get the street dug up, we
That's a good
asked
idea.
Shelbyville Power and Water if they would replace this. And the mention was made, hey, we just dug up, what is the name of the street? Is it South Spring Street there next
Yeah.
to the Grindstone? We just are digging that up. And lo and behold, there's actually a water line under that exact street that was put in 1896. We made the request to Shelbyville Power if they wanted to replace it, and they declined to replace it while the street was open.
Was it going to cost too much? What's the deal?
Well, it would cost their money. It would not be the
It's
city
not
wouldn't
city
pay
money.
for it.
Yeah,
No, it
that's-
would
yeah.
be, and they did. The water line hasn't failed, and the choice was made not to replace it. So I'm wondering if, and there was a lot of discussion at this big committee, which this big committee has no control over
Right, sure.
utilities at all, but just what can we do to incentivize them that while we got these streets open, and this isn't big chunks, we're talking like a block, 2 blocks of city streets, let's go ahead and replace some of this underground infrastructure, because as soon as we get this project fixed, the water line will break and then they'll have to tear the thing
Yeah.
up again. So why
Yeah,
wouldn't you
yeah.
fix it while you're already underground?
That would make
So
too much sense.
That would make a lot of sense. It would cost money. It would come
Right.
out of Shelbyville Power's budget, but just something they're looking for a way if we could incentivize them maybe somehow, like, hey, we got this street open. You put this in 1896. Maybe this would be a good opportunity.
Well, here's probably something they probably looked at, Josh, and I'm just thinking, just right here while we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Does that line stop there? Is that a dead end line, or is it continue on to other places? If it continued on to other places, it makes sense to fix it. If it's a
Right.
dead end line, maybe if it hadn't failed, then they can fix the dead end line. Well, they're still going to have to tear up.
They
stuff.
still would have to tear up the street.
Yeah.
It just
But I'm
seems
just
like the
wondering,
street's going to
yeah,
be torn
yeah.
up for a couple months. Why wouldn't you replace it?
Who
So I
pays
don't-
for the streets being tore up?
This is a grant.
They would
This
be
is
doing-
majority paid for by.
I'm talking
grant,
about
so.
in the event of, like, let's say they
if
have
the
to-
water line gets torn up, then Shelbyville Power has to fix the
Yeah,
street
it
in
would cost
theory
them
up
more.
to the quality.
Well, it would
that
make
was.
sense to go
So
ahead and fix it here.
I would think so. And they weren't talking like a huge. We're not talking like millions of dollars. They were talking like tens of thousands.
Oh,
of
wow.
dollars. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
so,
you do that. But
While it's currently like it is now, if they have to come back and fix it later,
Ooh.
the price goes up because they got to do all the repairs then. So Tuesday, the county committee meetings, which we already talked about one of them, but the other couple that happened, we had the Rules and Legislative Committee, which this is the second month in a row that they have debated bringing in a budget committee, which is allowed under the 1981 Act. We didn't pull any clips of this, but honestly, this got as contentious as the Public Safety Committee meeting did a little bit. There was a lot of back and forth, a lot of sniping between county commissioners at this one. And I mean, at the end, they've still come to no consensus. So I don't know. It doesn't feel like this is gaining any traction and going anywhere. It seems like a no-brainer. All it is setting up a separate budget committee that just focuses on budget issues. I think five commissioners is the number they're talking about putting on
Right.
it. There was mention at this meeting that, hey, our finance team is winning all these awards, and they've not had any audit findings in a number of years. So why
Well,
fix what's not broken?
Here's
But you've got this other point of view, which is, hey, we don't like the way some of these items have been moving through the system. We'd like to get a separate set of eyes on them. Not saying that anybody's necessarily misappropriating funds or doing anything illegal, but just it would get more commissioners involved in the budget process, because the way it works right now, a big chunk of the commission gets the budget binder, which I've gotten the last couple of years. And at that point, you've got 100 and some odd pages of budget. You can't really dig into it and focus on a line item on one of the departments. There's just physically not enough time, and you're not involved in those discussions. Those happen earlier on between the department heads and the finance committee.
I think
So,
there was some intentional confusion brought into this.
yeah.
When you start making comments and you're a committee member, Commissioner Vic is on that committee, and he says, well, why do you want to replace the budget? No, it's not about replacing. He kept saying the word replace. And then another commissioner from the crowd was in on this too. Well, we don't need to replace. It's not about replacing the budget committee. It's about, or the finance committee.
Yeah.
It's about adding another set of eyes, 5 more sets of eyes at the budget process.
At budget time, just at
Just
budget
at the budget
yeah,
time.
not during the other
And
finance issues,
many other
yeah.
counties have this that are part of the 81 Act, is it?
Right.
That
yeah, there's
go by
20,
the 81 Act.
Did they mention it to me? I
Yes.
think 20 some counties in the 81 Act. Nobody had a number of how many had budget committees, but it's definitely, it's out there. It's prevalent. It's actually, there was a whole chapter in the 81 Act on how your budget committee acts and what they do. It laid out the steps for it.
This could
So,
be simple, Josh.
it
this-
seems like a no-brainer. It seems like simple, but it's somehow gotten complicated.
Here's
so I don't
here's
know.
here's the one thing I think every commissioner needs to ask: which would be the best public service? 7 sets of eyes or 12 sets of eyes?
That's hard math. I don't know.
All right. So, what do you think the public would want? 12 sets of eyes putting the budget together, 7 sets of eyes putting the budget together. Oh, no. Let's take a poll. Let's
Right.
find out what our constituents want. No, there's no talk of constituents. It's about personal stuff here. And
Yeah.
we've got to get off our egos and start taking a look at what our general public wants, what the taxpayers want. I don't see a lot of that going on these days, Josh, about any of this.
Not enough. Not enough.
Okay. And you're a council member. I'm not talking to you.
That's all
You're
right.
doing a good job because I know
I-
you listen to your constituents.
I try, but
Yes.
yes, I do try. The other big thing at this meeting was there was a unusually high attendance, and it was a lot of people that we'd never seen at a county meeting. It was a group of realtors and developers showed up because rumor got out before the Rules Committee meeting that there was going to be a discussion or possibly a vote on an ordinance that would ban step systems in the county, which that's obviously a hot button with the wastewater authority
Right.
thing that just happened last month. It did get mentioned just briefly at the end of this meeting. Such an ordinance did exist. It got presented to the members of the committee like a couple hours before the meeting. So they didn't want to have a debate or a vote or even an in-depth discussion on an ordinance that they literally didn't have time to read the paperwork.
Yeah.
So this is something that will be back, I would assume, at next month's Rules Committee meeting. And I would expect attendance will probably be up at that meeting as well, because
Yes.
this is, again, a hot button topic. Does the county want to regulate step systems? Do they want to allow? Do they want to disallow step systems? Under what form of regulation? They want to do it under a authority? Do they want to have planning? So this is something that we thought maybe was going to go away for 6 months while it went back to planning. It seems like it's going to keep popping up every month until
Yeah,
it
and
moves in
I
some
think
kind of
all this
direction.
is going to be about having 1 acre per home, and this is about residential only, and it's about 1 acre, 1 home with a perk site. I mean, traditional septic system. What it all gets down to, Josh, this whole thing is about high density population, high density developments in the county.
Correct. Yeah,
That's
would
what
be the
this whole
point
thing is
of the
about.
Step systems
Right.
is: do we want to allow higher density cluster type development
Right.
out in the county, or do we want to not allow it? So, and that'll be up to the county commissioner to decide. So, and it
Unless-
looks
I
like
think-
we're going to keep talking about it.
Yeah,
So,
and I think everybody's wanting to hang it around the neck of step systems. This is about high density. That's what this whole thing's about. And when you do high density, you have to have some sort of step system in Bedford County. If you're putting half-acre lots out there, you've got to have it.
sure, yeah. If you can't perk for septic, it's your
By the
only
way,
other
I've got
option, so.
a poll right now that kind of addresses this. And as of this morning, there was I forget 3,600 people voted, and it was at 71% of the people were against it, and 29% were for it. And those 29%, there was a lot of duplicate votes that I'm going to have to filter out,
Right.
because there are a lot of realtors out there that want to see this poll in a different direction. But it's like it's a touchy subject.
It is, and I think there's still a lot more for both the commissioners and maybe even for the general public, a lot more research and looking into it that needs to happen. I know we had the one study session, which was good, but I think there's a lot more information that needs to be gathered before they make any kind of decision to move forward with this, which I think is going to happen. We've got a lot of time here. There's no rush on any of this. So,
Right.
Courthouse and Property Committee, which was the last one of the evening on Tuesday, the two items, your favorite, the courthouse lights are just about to get turned on.
$278,000 worth of lights that will be flashing and shining and
I don't
lighting
think
up the
they-
courthouse.
I don't think they flash. It's kind of the color.
You paying
yeah.
$278,000?
I mean, you could probably flick the switch and they flash. I don't think the
that
idea
thing's
is
programmable. It can flash,
might
I'm
flash.
sure.
Okay,
But
we'll
here's
see if
the
it
thing
flashes.
about this, Josh.
Yeah.
It's taken a while to get these. And that $278,000 would go to a would go well toward getting some communications and temporary communications in place for our first responders out there that are having to use the smoke signals.
Now, this just so we're not beaten up too bad. This was from a earmarked fund that can only be used for courthouse improvements. Remember, this is from that courthouse fund, so they could not have used it. On radio,
somebody
so.
earmarked it at some point.
Well, it's by state
our
law.
priorities are fantastic, man.
By
We
state
gonna
law,
see.
they could
Hey,
not have spent
Do
this.
you
on
have
anything
any
other than
trouble seeing the
courthouse.
courthouse when you go to the square at night?
It's going to look prettier with all the lights on it. It's going to be amazing. We're going to be there very early on. We're going to take pictures and video. You're going to love it.
I know.
You're gonna love
I sarcastically
You're gonna
joke
love it.
about this. All right.
Yeah. And most of that money, as we pointed out back when
I
we
know.
had this debate, most of the money was actually on electrical upgrades to the courthouse, not on the
Yes,
physical
and it's
lights
helping other
themselves.
parts of the
So
courthouse.
It is. So, also at the Courthouse and Property Committee, they got a report that they had requested on the morgue. This is the full commission had been asked to vote on money to put the morgue and the new surplus building that's being built. They took exception to the fact that they were being asked to vote on the money when they hadn't seen any kind of drawings or final concept of what the morgue would look like. So they got a packet. I didn't actually see it. I saw it handed to them. It looked like it had a number of pages and pictures and drawings. They were happy with what they received. They voted to send back to the commission a favorable recommendation.
Okay.
to
This
approve
is the way
morgue.
things should work, Josh. You get a bid, even though there might be some variables in it, you got an idea on paper of what it's going to look like, what it's going to cost. You can move forward with that versus some of this. Well, it might be in the air. It's just out in the air talking around. You didn't have it on paper. All these past debacles we've had this corrects it. This is the right way you do it.
Yeah, and this is what they were asking for, and they got it. And
Right.
they
Everybody
approved it.
Yeah.
So
take note here. This is the way things get done right here.
yeah, and nobody was going to vote against the morgue. We need a morgue.
No,
people
what
are
we're gonna
dying
do-
every day.
Yes,
so
yes.
yeah, you gotta have one.
Before
So-
you move forward,
Yep.
we've got a lot of comments out there.
Uh-oh.
Steve Jordan's with us. Daniel Dial was talking about, I think, the audio that we had of the testing. It wasn't the comm center. I don't know what he's talking about.
maybe not. Maybe it was two people
Yeah.
out in the field talking about
Probably
14.
was.
Yeah,
Probably
it
was.
sounded like concern
All right.
to me because it was so clear.
Brian
from the
Cruz
city.
is in there with us today. A Doge committee. I like it. I like it.
A Doge committee
hey,
could be.
hey,
That's not in the 81 Act. We have
Brian-
to write that in.
Brian,
somehow.
let's talk about that. I've got an idea. All
Yeah.
right, Steve Jordan. When is the rules meeting? Rules committee. It's
Rules
another
committee
month.
is it is the, I should know this off the top of my head, third Tuesday of the month, 5:00 p.m. second floor of the courthouse in the committee room, not in the main courtroom.
Next one will be in April now.
Yeah, the next one will be next month, third Tuesday.
I'll try to
whatever-
look that
whatever
up
that
while
works
you're
up
wrapping
to.
this up here on that.
Yeah, where are we at here on the rundown? Okay, actually, we're moving forward to a whole other meeting, which was Thursday. We had a school board meeting, and we were looking forward to this because I knew that there was going to be a vote on actually what's going to be a city project that city is now going to get tasked with voting on, which is the property at Remington Farms. This is otherwise referred to as the old swing property. It's the property that wraps around and behind Jostens. They were offered a deal from the developer where the developer will give them 20 acres of this property to build an elementary school. And in return, there's a contingency in this. I saw the memorandum of understanding. There's a contingency that the city planning commission has to approve a PUD on this property in order for them to give the acreage to the school board to build the school on. So can you go to clip 3 and let's play our school board chairman, his discussion of this, and then we'll talk about it here. Clip 2, sorry.
And so it's my understanding that this goes before the planning commission, right? So just so we're all clear on everything. So tonight, what we're voting on is on an MOU between the Board of Education and the developer that says, hey, we'll have 20 acres in this specific spot that we would be able to build a school on in 20 years with the option, or well, quite frankly, plan to build a school in 20 years and with the option to extend that 5 more years with the written notice. Now, here's the thing. If the planning commission, which I believe Mr. Blevins is on, decides that, hey, this is not good for the city, then so be it. Okay. It's just an opportunity for us. It's land that was given to us that says, hey, or that would be given to us that says, hey, in the next 20 to 25 years, you could build a school here potentially. Okay, we may not. I can tell you right now, you guys know as well as I do, we don't have the funds in place to build a school. We'd have to go to our funding body and get funds to do that. But once again, the planning commission says, hey, this is not feasible, then this goes away. We move on with the plans that we have in place. And if that's the city deems that that's traffic studies and all that sort of stuff needs to be done by the developer, or the planning commission's got, I would assume, the authority to do that. City commission surely does, right? So that would be in your court. Our court tonight is just to vote on whether or not we want to enter this MOU for the land that we would have, and we'll pass it to you guys to decide up or down what you want to do. I mean, we're not in any way, shape, or form saying, oh, you got to do this to build a school. We're just saying this is a good deal for us if it works out.
All right, Josh, you were at that meeting and you heard the whole thing. So
Yeah. So what is going to be signed is just a memorandum of understanding between this developer and the school board that sometime in the next 25 years, the school board will use 20 acres of this property to put in an elementary school. If the school board is not able to gather the funding for the elementary school in the 25 years in the memorandum of understanding, the property reverts to the developer and he can then build on it as he sees fit or as he's allowed to under codes at that time, 25 years in the future. We've discussed Remington Farms at length, going back, as long as we've been having a show. This is 120 plus acres. The initial proposal was 400 single family homes, 315 townhomes. The adjustment now is they've cut off a portion of the townhomes to give to the school board. They're going to continue to build they want to continue to build the 400 single family homes and then a smaller section of townhomes, giving them a total of 500 and something. We've not received the official offer yet at the planning commission, so I don't have an exact number, but a little over 500 doors, rooftops, whatever you want to call them, and an elementary school at that location. All the holdup over this period, this was initially presented to the planning commission December of 2023, and the holdup starting on that date to the date that we're sitting at now is this is on a state highway, so TDOT has specific requirements as far as traffic studies, traffic flow, what impact this has on the traffic on Union Street. None of the traffic studies came back favorable to the developer. They came back where they're having such a detrimental impact on traffic that they need to make improvements at the entrance to their subdivision. They need to make improvements on Union Street at Cloverdale, improvements on Union Street at Jennings Lane, I believe Union Street at Mac. Don't hold me to that one. And then, honestly, the biggest sticking point that's still not resolved, even if this school deal goes through, some level of assistance on improvements, Union Street at Colorado. And that will be the big dollar project because that's an intersection that's already full. That will require moving major utility movement. That require acquiring right-of-way. And they're talking for a fairly long stretch on either side of that intersection. And that's not a solid yes or no. The other ones, the developer has to pay 100% on those. That's the TDOT's been very clear on that. That one bigger intersection, it's a debatable position of where the developer and the city can go back and forth and decide a percentage split on that one. So with the school coming in there, there's going to need to be an adjustment to that traffic study. So, because instead of 715 rooftops, you've now got 500 in some rooftops, plus a 100,000 square foot elementary school. So what does that do to your traffic? We've seen what Thomas Magnet School, which is closer into town, does. If you ever try to drive down Elm Street at about 3 p.m. on a weekday heading into town, you can't use the right lane because traffic backs out into the main road there. So we would have to, or the school board and the city combined would have to find a way to get a school in there that didn't back out onto Union Street. You don't want Union Street getting blocked. There's not 4 lanes there. If you block a lane of Union Street with parents waiting to pick up kids or parents dropping off kids, you've blocked a major artery coming into the city. So that will have to be looked at closely. You've still got the whole other set of side issues that we've talked about for a year and a half now, which is the back entrance to this subdivision still feeds through Cloverdale. The
Right.
residents of that neighborhood are not happy with this situation because they don't have, I mean, it's just going to add to traffic in their neighborhood. I mean, there's just no way around it. It will. And then some of the side things that we've been talking about the city in general, which is this project has minimal green space. It meets the bare minimum requirement of green space. Those requirements are about to change, but this was, submitted back in 2023. So they're grandfathered in at the old green space requirements, which is they only have to have 5% of their of their total project area of 120 some acres. Only 5% of that has to be usable.
How
green
can they be
space.
grandfathered in? Nothing's been approved yet.
That's the way the law works. You cannot, you can't change the law once their application is in. You can't come in and change the law.
Gotcha.
That would be unfair to the developer, and that's been, that's legal precedent in the state going back.
But they
forever.
hadn't been approved yet.
Hasn't been approved, but because on the other hand, if you had somebody that was working against the developer, you could go change the law while the development was
Right.
going through the stages. So once they make the application, they're grandfathered in. They're allowed the 5%. But there's other aspects that can be looked at in this process to decide, as the school board chairman said there, this may not be a good deal for the city. I realize there's 20 free acres for an elementary school, but is a free piece of property worth,
But it's not. It's not free. It's nothing until you build a school on it. The county
Right.
decides to build a school on it.
yeah, the county's got to build the
You're
school.
not getting
They're
this property yet until you build something.
and they're not offering to build the school for the county. They're just
No,
giving
right.
them the land. And if the county isn't able to come up with the funding for this school, which this school is not at the top of the priority list
No.
by any way, shape, or form in Bedford County. Now, they're still working. I've not seen their final 10-year plan that they're working on, but all indications are Liberty High School is the top need in Bedford County
Right.
right now as far as the school goes. There's a possibility this could fall into that number 2 spot, but you've also got middle school needs. You've got to make sure that the Liberty High School thing takes care of the problem at Shelbyville Central, the overcrowding there. And then this kind of falls down there. And then you've got to fund all that. I mean, Liberty High School is going to be a big expense. That's going to be a lot of bonds. You're going to fund that. And then, so they've got to find a way to fund this in 20 or 25 years, or again, the property just goes straight back to the developer and you get more townhomes.
It's kind of amazing that the school board has had this thrown in their lap, and basically they're involved in a city development now because of this little maneuver.
Yeah, in a manner of speaking, yeah, they have been a little bit. So I think and I talked to a number of the school board members after. They're not unaware that this is a little bit of a political play to make this development look more appetizing and hopefully get it, passed.
Yeah, because if we don't get past y'all saying no to a school, we're going to give you.
Yeah, it's a little it's a little bit of a bundle kind of deal. That's been
everybody
kinda,
likes to
yeah,
tie things together to
it's
make you look bad.
a little bit. So
Well, the elephant in the room is the traffic issue.
right, yeah, we still have not seen a new traffic study to show us how this impacts the traffic on Union Street, if it makes even more improvements necessary, if it makes less improvements necessary, and then how that dollar figure split at that major intersection is going to be between the city and the developer if the city agrees to a dollar figure split there.
Yeah.
So lot of moving parts still. We'll keep an eye on it. Last thing at the school board meeting, just something I mentioned last week that we've been keeping an eye on. School attendance finally, in this most recent attendance report, has gone back to basically level with last year. For the first 7 attendance reports of this school year, we had been down quite a bit every month in the average number of students at the schools in Bedford County every day. And for the most recent one, which they just gave out Thursday night, we're within 4 students of where we were at last year.
Okay,
So we're
question.
back to even.
Okay,
much.
is this based on average attendance or enrollment?
That is
This
a good
looks
question.
this to me.
think-
This says attendance, but I want to think this has got to do with enrollment.
I
of
think
how
it's
many kids.
attendance. They called it an
Okay.
attendance report. Now,
Okay,
I'm-
that could be factors because we had a lot of flu and stuff. If kids were missing school because of illness more than average for the year, that could address that. Why?
Some of it,
on
but
the front
again,
end
this
of
has
the
been
school.
7. Yeah, this has been the entire school year up until this one. But we
Yeah.
are back to we're about even now. They did say normally, because we've been so low for the majority of the school year, our funding next year would go down.
Right.
But
But not
because
now.
of some of the stuff that's happened at the state level, including that bill that was passed
Yeah, if
recently,
Brian Cruz is watching, he might know the answer to that question if that's enrollment or attendance.
or attendance, he
Yeah.
might. But the schools still are anticipating getting more money from the state next year than this year based on some of the changes in the funding formula that have happened in the state. And some of that was all tied into that
Right.
voucher bill and stuff. So, and then last thing I went to this week that I want to touch on real quick is Friday. I spent, it was basically an extended lunch meeting. It was called the Forum on Growth and Regional Challenges. This is held every year at MTSU at their College of Business. Some of the main speakers this year were the mayors of Gallatin, Columbia, and Wilson County. And what I found out, I wasn't able to go last year. I was invited and missed it, but this year I went. And what I kind of knew going in, but we found hearing from people in other communities, everybody's facing the same issues. They got the same growth issues. The mayor of Gallatin didn't actually mention this at this meeting. This was actually an article I read this morning. Gallatin has actually filed for a private act with the state legislature, currently working its way through the state legislature, to allow the city of Gallatin to pass an impact fee on developers bringing development into the city because they have so much coming into Gallatin. If you go, they've got a website, City of Gallatin does, that just lists the number of developments that are either approved or pending or coming up, and it goes on forever. So they're growing even faster than we are. So they're looking for a way to get an impact fee. That's a thing here in Shelbyville that we've asked about in the past, and by state law, it's currently not allowed. So they're looking to they got their state senator to present to the legislature a private act which would allow just them to lay an impact fee on developers coming there, which if that were to pass, that might be an avenue that smaller cities like Shelbyville, maybe we could do something similar next legislative session. I think it's something a lot of other municipalities will be keeping an eye on to see if it actually gets passed by the state.
Yeah, with the demographics that we have in Bedford County and Shelbyville, there should be some sort of impact fee that's applicable because our tax base is just not what other counties experience because of average incomes. Let's face it.
Yeah. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And other than that, I think that's all we're going to talk about from last week, but we might hear from our sponsor one more time. And then we got a lot of stuff coming up in the upcoming week, and we'll talk about it after the break.
Get the results you want with the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 19...
All righty, welcome back to the weekend wrap up. We're about to wrap up. Josh, tell us what's happening this week.
This coming week is a busy week, particularly in city government. But before we get into the actual week, let's talk about real quick this evening at Emmy's Restaurant, 5 to 7:30 p.m. is the fundraiser for the Spay and Neuter Clinic. This was postponed from last weekend. It was supposed to be last Saturday. There was all the rain and storms, so they pushed it back a week. So show up at Emmy's anytime between 5 and 7:30. You get spaghetti, I believe, is what's on the menu.
All right.
And it's $20 at the door, and it helps support someone that's real important, as we've talked a lot about animal control issues. Spaying and neutering your pets is one of the keys to keeping the animal population down, so we don't have all these issues at animal control. So get out and support them. Tuesday evening is the County Financial Management Committee at 4:15 p.m. This time was actually discussed again at the most recent committees. We didn't get into that, but there's a part of the debate back and forth was, why do you guys keep having this meeting at 4:15 when nobody that has a real job can get to it?
Exactly.
And the argument has been they tried to move it for 2 months at one time in the past, and for those 2 months, it didn't change the attendance numbers at all, so they fell right back into the 4:15. So
cop out.
So we're back at 4:15, which is actually where it's been the entire time I've attended. So I'll be at that one. And actually, I've got to rush out of that one because at 5 o'clock the same evening, we have what is a joint meeting of the City Council, the Planning Commissioner, the City Planning Commission, and then we've also invited people from the county because we had a corridor access management study done on 231 North all the way up into Rutherford County, the bypass, and 41A. And there's an agreement that we're going to consider and likely sign, I believe, that it's just basically a way of us to work together as the city and the county. And actually, Rutherford County's in on this because 231 spreads into Rutherford County. And it affects what type of development is allowed on that corridor, spacing of intersections, spacing of traffic signals, keeping all that so that traffic continues to
Right.
flow without getting too backed up on those major state highways going through town.
Definitely a
So,
major issue right now.
definitely an issue. Then the very next morning, I got to get right back up in the morning. 8 o'clock Wednesday morning is an all-day city council strategic planning meeting. That is an 8-hour meeting, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
So
And-
what will y'all be strategizing on?
Anything coming up in the city, I think, for the next 5 to 10 years.
Ooh, that's a lot.
It's a lot. It's going to have, in addition to city council, I believe our mayor will be there. I would assume our city attorney will be there. And I saw the invitation list. It's basically all the department heads as well. And it's everybody in city government getting together and looking towards the future and trying to come up with a plan.
And how long is this meeting going to be?
8 hours is what I was
Is that
told to
all?
set aside. That was
This could
enough for
take
me.
months.
Oh, it could take a while. It could take a while. 8 hours is what I was told. Thursday, the very next day, we have the city planning commissions. That will be my third city meeting in a day.
That's a lot.
And we've got, I'm trying to remember the agenda, nothing crazy. We will have hopefully it will be ready in time, the adjustment to the green space requirements on PUDs. I believe there's some site plans, possibly the Walmart DC site plan, I believe is in there. The minor,
They're already working on that.
well, they're just doing groundwork. It's all grading work. They haven't, nothing vertical has gone up
Nothing
yet.
vertical.
So
A lot of groundwork.
lot of gravel. We've seen that, and then also there's a minor expansion happening at the actual Walmart store, and it involves, because I got to see the drawings a little more. Basically, they're shifting around where you do the
Pickups, yeah.
and adding a huge. I can't remember. I should have written down the number. A huge number more spaces for pickups. So apparently everybody's gotten into the deal. They go on the app, they order their stuff. They don't like to walk into Walmart. I don't like. I don't like. But I walk in every weekend.
I don't like
so-
pulling in the parking lot either.
Well, I go in every weekend and shop there, because keep my sales tax dollars local. And but this will allow you to go on the app. They bring it to your car and all that stuff. I don't do that. I walk in the store.
It's a
I like
novel,
to walk down
novel
the aisles. I
idea.
push my little cart.
Do you really?
Get my stuff. I got my list. I may come across something I didn't think about.
Do
when
you
I'm
buy
walking
groceries there?
Some groceries there and some at Kroger. I kind of split between them and Kroger. So,
Okay.
yeah. But, and then just another side note, this isn't on my rundown. We talked about it a little bit last week. And again, not my place to be the announcement for this, but the deal I talked about last week where Cooper Steel is of their own initiative going out and they are spending some of their money to do a study, kind of a look for, kind of similar to what the city's doing on Wednesday, but a broader look at how we can improve Shelbyville and Bedford County going forward, how we can attract more industry, how we can change our demographics, maybe, increase, get in more professionals, more, millennials, more, just get more good things coming into the area. The group that they've contracted with, I think is going to be in town here a couple days this week, kind of looking around, talking to some local people, getting ideas and preparing this report that they're working on. So that'll be exciting. And I hope they'll have, at some point in the future, I'm sure they'll have their own big announcement of this and roll that out.
Right.
But that's just something that's going to be going on this week for people to be aware of. And other than that, I think we'll be back here at the same place.
Yeah,
same
same place,
time,
same
same
time.
channel with the news that matters in
Yeah.
Shelbyville and Bedford County next Saturday morning at 10 a.m. So
Thanks for watching.
come back and join.